The Flower Ornament Sutra, Book 39, Part 4. Then the enlightening being, flames of knowledge of vows of the illuminator, by the power of Buddha, looked over the 10 directions and spoke these verses. Those of unerring recollection, pure, born of truth of a certain mind, and inconceivable wisdom, are inexhaustible oceans of enlightenment. This is the sphere of action of those whose minds are resolved hereon. Their knowledge is unshakable. They have ended doubt. They do not become depressed or dejected. Their minds are on the way to Buddhahood. Filled with good qualities realized over countless eons, the peerless seekers of knowledge dedicate them all. They think about the course of life, but do not take refuge in it. They take refuge in the Buddha teachings, sporting in the realm of Buddha. Whatever mundane fortune takes place in the world of sentient beings, the resolute relinquish it all, for they are set on the attainment of Buddhahood. Vainly clinging, the world is always fettered. There, those of unobstructed action are always set on the welfare of beings. Unequaled in their action, inconceivable to all beings, they consider the happiness of the world, whereby suffering is repelled. They have purified knowledge of enlightenment and are sympathetic to all beings, as lights of the world emancipating all beings. Then the enlightening being, valiant one with knowledge to disperse all barriers, by the power of Buddha, looked over the 10 directions and spoke these verses. The name of Buddha is hard to come by, even in 1 billion eons. How much more so the sight of Buddha, supreme, which ends all desires. Buddha appears as the light of the world, gone to the goal of all truth, worthy of the offerings of the 3 worlds, purifier of all beings. Those who regard the physical form of the impeccable best of beings never tire of it, even in countless eons. Offspring of the victor, looking at the form body of the Lord of humans, unattached, dedicate themselves purely to enlightenment, seeking the highest goal. This is the door to enlightenment, the corporeal embodiment of the great sage, whence issue unhindered, inexhaustible, analytic intellectual powers. Having illumined infinite beings, the great sage foretells their supreme enlightenment, having led them into the great vehicle. The great field of blessings, a sphere of knowledge, has emerged and illuminates infinite beings, increasing the mass of virtue. There is no fear of evil ways for those who associate now with Buddha, the one who cuts through the net of misery and purifies the mass of knowledge. A great mind is born in those who see the Buddha. Immeasurable wisdom and power is born, radiant as the moon. They will be sure of enlightenment, having seen the Buddha, and will be certain that they will become Buddhas themselves. Then the enlightening being, king of super-knowledge, discerning the differentiations of the plane of the cosmos, by the power of Buddha, looked over the 10 directions and spoke these verses. Having seen the sage endowed with infinite virtues, the minds of those dedicated to the great vehicle are purified. The Buddhas appear for the welfare of all beings, universally compassionate, steadfast, turning the wheel of the teaching. How can all creatures requite the Buddha's countless eons of dedication to their welfare? It is better to burn in the fearsome 3 evils for eons than not to see the teacher who quells all attachments. All the mass of suffering that takes place in all realms of being is tolerable, but not deprivation of the sight of Buddha. It is better to live long in every miserable way in the world than not to hear the Buddhas. Each eon spent even in hell is better than elsewhere, apart from Buddha, distant from enlightenment. What is the reason for wanting to live long amid calamities? It is to see the Buddha and increase in knowledge. All miseries are ended once the Buddha has been seen, and entry into knowledge takes place into the sphere of the enlightened. All obstructions are removed when Buddha is seen, increasing measureless virtue, whereby enlightenment is attained. Sight of Buddha severs all doubts of sentient beings and fulfills all purposes, mundane and transcendental. Then the great enlightening being, universally good, having looked over the host of enlightening beings everywhere, to further analyze, discuss in detail, explain, reveal, elucidate, bring to light, illumine, and point out by means of the cosmos of truths, equal to the realm of space, equal to past, present, and future, equal to the realm of realities, equal to the realm of beings, equal to the realm of all worlds, equal to all sets of actions, equal to the dispositions of beings, equal to the interests of beings, equal to the specific illustrations of truth, equal to the appropriate times for the maturation of beings, and equal to the faculties of all beings, elucidated this lion emergence concentration of Buddha by means of 10 indications. Indication of the succession of all Buddhas and the succession of lands and the atoms of the Buddha lands throughout all universes. Indication of the seeking and following of virtues of the Buddhas in all Buddha lands in space throughout the future. Indication of Buddhas emerging in all Buddha lands and showing the ocean of infinitely various doors of enlightenment. Indication of the hosts of enlightening beings in the circles of the Buddhas in the Buddha lands throughout space facing the terrace of enlightenment. Indication of pervading the cosmos in a moment of thought with emanations in the forms of the Buddhas of past, present, and future, emitted from every pore. Indication of the light of magical pervation of all multitudes of lands, in all the oceans, in all directions equally, with one body. Indication of revelation of the power of concentration of all pasts, present, and futures, of the transfigurations of the state of Buddhahood in the surfaces of all objects. Indication of manifestation of the oceans of eons of various successive transfigurations of Buddha in the lands of past, present, and future, equal to the atoms in all lands. Indication of the birth of enlightening beings from the endless power emanating from every pore by the ocean of vows of all Buddhas of past, present, and future. Indication of endless manifestation of varied expositions of truth amid equal adornments of sights of enlightenment, with circles of enlightening beings around lion thrones, equal in extent to the cosmos. These 10, O offspring of the victor, said Samantabhadra, the universally good enlightening being, are the first 10 of as many expressions of the lion emergence concentration as atoms in untold Buddha lands, which I follow. However, these are the sphere of knowledge of those who arrive at thusness. Then the enlightening being, universally good, illuminating the expression of the meaning of the lion emergence concentration of Buddha by the empowerment of Buddha, while gazing on the face of Buddha, observing the ocean of assemblies everywhere, observing the infinitely various transfigurations of the concentration of Buddha in the inconceivable sphere of the enlightened, observing the magical nature of inconceivable knowledge, and observing all teachings expressed in an inconceivably infinite variety of manners of speaking, then uttered these verses. Like the atoms of all lands are the oceanic Buddha lands on a single hair tip. Surrounded by a circle of enlightening beings, there Buddha rests on the throne of the enlightened. In the ocean of Buddha lands on a single hair, on a lotus throne at the site of enlightenment, extended throughout the cosmos, the guide is seen at the trees of enlightenment. Like the atoms in all lands are the Buddhas assembled on a single hair. surrounded by a host of enlightening beings, they expound all good actions. Buddha sits in one land pervading all lands. Endless hosts of enlightening beings go there from everywhere. Like atoms in countless lands, enlightening beings, radiant seas of virtue, should appear in the audiences of the teachers throughout the cosmos. Appearing like reflections in all lands, oceans of knowledge of Buddhas, established in good practices, they arrive in the assemblies of all Buddhas. Assembled everywhere in all lands, in the realm of the joy of enlightening practice, delighted in hearing the myriad teachings, they pass millions of eons in each land. Enlightening beings carry out their practices, coursing in the ocean of truth, emanating light. They enter the oceans of vows established in the sphere of Buddhahood. Born of the teachings of the Buddhas, acting with universal good in mind, they enter the oceans of qualities of Buddhas in vast transfigurations. Pervading the refuge of the reality realm, they constantly emanate a cloud of bodies, as many as atoms in all lands, with the rain of truth for enlightenment. Then the blessed Buddha, wanting to establish those enlightening beings in this lion emergence concentration of Buddhas, went on to emanate from the circle of hair between his brows a light called illumining past, present, and future, showing all ways into the reality realm, accompanied by as many beams of light as atoms in untold Buddha lands, with which he illumined all lands in all oceans of worlds in the 10 directions. Then the enlightening beings who had gathered at the Jeta Grove saw in every Buddha land, in all universes throughout the farthest reaches of space, in groups of Buddha lands, within atoms of Buddha lands as numerous as atoms in all Buddha lands, in Buddha lands of various powers, various purities, various locations, and various conditions, an enlightening being at the summit of enlightenment, sitting on a lion throne, attended by all world rulers, surrounded by a multitude of enlightening beings, attaining unexcelled, supreme, perfect enlightenment. Here, teachings in circles as vast as untold Buddha lands, with a sphere of sound pervading the cosmos. There, gone to the various realms of existence, or in the cities, towns, communities, and nations of the human world, teaching the truth by means of various miracles, various modes of conduct, various embodiments, various indications of ways of concentration, various superknowledges from concentration, appearing in various castes and races, with various auras of light, radiating various webs of light beams, with various spheres of sound, in various congregations, setting up various interlocutors, setting up various instructions, in various words and expressions. And as those enlightening beings saw the transfigurations of the profound concentration of the Buddha in all those assemblies, they saw transfigurations of Buddha throughout the cosmos, in all worlds throughout space, in the arrays of the 10 directions, in the sets of cycles in all places, in the confluence of all spaces, in the media of principles in the various regions, in the various realms of conception, in the conjunctions of the various regions, in the specific spaces of the various regions, in the oceans of all regions, that is, in the north, south, east, west, northeast, southeast, southwest, northwest, nadir and zenith, in the places of the body of lands, in the places of the body of beings, in the places that are in the conceptions of beings, in the regions of past ages, in the regions of the present in the 10 directions, in every point in all realms of space, in the locus of each and every atom of all lands, in the points of entry of all spaces, in the locations of occurrence of performance of various actions, in the conceptual locations of infinite surfaces of space, in a point the size of a hair tip, those transfigurations reflected in the minds of all living beings, using their languages, in the perceptions of all living beings, without discrimination among beings, equal in past, present, and future, coming forth equally everywhere as a whole, with physical forms coming to all assemblies, descending into the presence of all bodies of beings, with the same knowledge in all ages, appearing to all beings according to their mentalities, equally, everywhere in all lands, elucidating the teachings of Buddhas and guiding sentient beings ceaselessly. All of them were united by the blessed Vairochana Buddha, by the four integrative methods, by a quality of past virtuous actions. They were fully developed by seeing, hearing, and remembering. They had already set their minds on supreme enlightenment. Going to the Buddhas here and there, they were united by fundamental virtues. In accord with the sameness of their roots of goodness and adoption of means of developing omniscience, the enlightening beings gained access to the projections of the concentration of the blessed Vairochana, which extended throughout the cosmos to the farthest reaches of space. Some comprehended the reality body, some the form body, some the past attainment of Vairochana as an enlightening being, some the fulfillment of the ways of transcendence, some the pure adornment of the sphere of action, some the mystic projection of the stages of enlightening, some the mystical projection of perfect enlightenment, some the unconfused mystical projection of the concentrations in which Buddhas sojourn, some the powers and fearlessnesses of Buddhas, and some comprehended the ocean of analytic powers of Buddhas. They entered into as many such oceans of mystical projections of Buddha as there are atoms in 10 inexpressible numbers of Buddha lands. They entered those oceans of mystical projections of Buddha by way of various devotions, various paths, various doors, various entries, various penetrations, various methods, various approaches, various directions, various capacities, various places, various worlds, various attainments, various provisions, various transformations, various means, and various concentrations. Those enlightening beings gained access to the mystical projections, the miraculous transfigurations of the blessed Buddha Vairochana by means of such enlightening beings. Concentrations as these: adornment of the entire cosmos, illumination of the realm of unobstructed knowledge of all times, light of knowledge of the continuity of the planes of the cosmos, entry into the plane of the sphere of those who realize thusness, illumination of the plane of space, free access to the 10 powers of Buddhas, bold emergence adorned by the fearlessness of the enlightened, whirlpool of the principle of the reality realm, moon pervading all universes with unhindered sound, and light of principles of universal order. Those enlightening beings also entered the oceans of mystical projections of Buddhahood of the blessed Vairochana by way of such enlightening concentrations as those known as emblem of the King of Truth crowned by non-attachment, seeing oceans of Buddhas in all objects, emblem of reflection of the different bodies of all realms of being, entry into the unalloyed sphere of the body of those who arrive at thusness, container of compassion, going along with the whirl of all worlds, founded on the power based on all truths, sphere of revelation of untimely quiescent indifferent equality, universally projected reflection emanated purely without attachment, occult manifestation of the unity of all lands, effectuation of the manifestation of attainment of enlightenment in all Buddha lands, comprehension of embodiment of all oceanic virtues, endless spiritual power to effect the mystical transfiguration of all objects, entry into the ocean of past practices of all Buddhas, basis of eternal preservation of the lineage of Buddhas, power of devotion to purification of the ocean of all lands in the 10 directions of the present, illumination of the states of all Buddhas in a single moment of thought, entry into ultimate freedom from attachment to all objects, causing all worlds to appear in one Buddha field, production of emanations of all embodiments of Buddhas, adamantine knowledge of the ocean of all faculties, causing all Buddhas to appear within a single body, instantaneous state of discovering the principle of all things in the point of a moment of thought, spiritual power of manifesting nirvana in all realms in the cosmos, power to roam on the highest plane, magical manifestation of the differentiation of the bodies of beings in all Buddha lands, entry into the presence of the whirl of all knowledge, complete knowledge and differentiation of past, present, and future in a single instant, containing the body of principles of the cosmos in every moment of thought, lion following the lineage of all Buddhas, sphere of the eye of wisdom, seeing the cosmos in all objects, vigorous undertaking of approach to the 10 powers, sphere of the eye of universal vision of all objects, illumination of beings in all spheres of form, space of an unmoving whirl, showing all things in one thing, verbal analysis of truth. Those enlightening beings also entered the oceans of mystic projections of Buddha, made by Vairochana, by way of such enlightening beings' concentrations as exposition of truth, setting up the standard of all Buddhas, illumination unattached to the borders of past, present, and future, continuous knowledge of all ages, entry into the 10 powers by subtle means, accomplishment of unbreakable practice of the essence of enlightenment through all ages, clouds swiftly appearing everywhere, creation of magical appearances of attainment of enlightenment, characterized by all pleasures of feeling, adornment of space with all kinds of magnificent arrays, moment to moment producing clouds of crested images, like beings of the world, light of the moon of realization of thusness pure as space, space-like base of all who realize thusness, radiance of all spiritual faculties, lamp revealing the meanings of all things, illumination of the sphere of the 10 powers, characterized by the brilliance of the Buddhas of all times, the unique source of all Buddhas, accomplishing undertakings in every passing moment, source of inexhaustible blessing, illumination of guidance of endless vision of Buddha, supreme adamantine basis of all truths, production of universal manifestations of the emanations of all Buddhas, consummating the course of the sun of all Buddhas, instantly illuminating past, present, and future, sound of the voice emitting universal light, illumining the natural quiescence of all things, march to the boundary of vision of all Buddhas, aware of all things like a collection of lotuses, observation of phenomena as baseless like the sky, whirlpool of concentration of the ocean of all spaces in one space, entering directly into the ground of all phenomena, oceanic source of all things, tranquil body shining light on all beings, accomplishment of the will for all higher knowledge in a single moment of thought, eternal manifestation of the attainment of enlightenment equally everywhere, entering into all universes by comprehending them as one single array, illumination of the body of recollection of all Buddhas, intuition of vast higher knowledge of all worlds, merging one's being with the infinite cosmic principle in a single mental instant, illumination of the homologous order of all things in homologous universes, mystical manifestation of the fiery energy of the spheres of all Buddha teachings, basis of the determination and action taking all realms of beings into the net of Indra, continuity of the ground of all worlds, traveling everywhere by mystic projections of lotus-like splendor, intuitive knowledge of the cycles of the bodies of all beings, magical materialization in the presence of all beings, superknowledge of the means of analyzing mundane speech in the ocean of utterances of all beings, superknowledge of the distinctions of the seeds of all worlds, unalloyed, incorruptible matrix of great compassion, entry of all Buddhas into the goal of realization of thusness, and lion-like emergence to behold the abode of liberation of all Buddhas. By entry into as many of the concentrations of enlightening beings as atoms in untold Buddha lands, beginning with these, those enlightening beings entered into the ocean of the blessed Vairochana's mystical projections of Buddhahood, and they accordingly remembered equivalent transformations carried out in the past. Furthermore, by the mental, moment-to-mental moment entry, pervading the whole cosmos, of those enlightening beings who were in the presence of Buddha in the Jeta Grove, sitting on lion thrones in lotuses of various jewels as vast as worlds as numerous as atoms in 10 Buddha lands, born of the occult transformation of great knowledge and insight, having attained the stage of penetrating knowledge and insight, contemplating with universal knowledge, born of the source of wisdom, on the brink of omniscience, having unclouded eyes of knowledge, having arrived at the state of leaders of beings, having approached equality with all Buddhas, always carrying out the principle of non-discrimination, with specific knowledge of all objects, relating to all things as naturally calm, in the ultimate asylum of the quiescence and nirvana of all worlds, yet upholding the variety of all worlds, going to all lands without attachment, in the midst of all things without reliance on anything, effortlessly establishing the measures of all teachings, knowing how to develop and guide all people, showing all beings the state of peace and serenity, risen to the realm of the abode of knowledge and liberation, embodying knowledge gone to the limit of dispassion, having emerged from the ocean of all existences, observing the limit of reality of all worlds, in the sphere of light of knowledge of the ocean of truths, with great compassionate minds perfectly unified by oceanic concentration, thoroughly aware of the principle of the illusoriness of phenomena, having comprehended that all worlds are like dreams, knowing the vision of all Buddhas are like reflections, aware that all utterances are like echoes, knowing that the effects of all things are like magic productions, determined to reach the sphere of fulfillment, following skillful methods of purification of the sphere of universal knowledge, with ultimately peaceful and calm minds, with knowledge of all families of mystic spells, with fearless, even force of the power of concentration, with the eye reaching the limit of the cosmos, in the stage of the ungraspability of all things, contemplating the infinite ocean of wisdom, gone to the farther shore of transcendence by knowledge, having attained the sustaining power of transcendent wisdom, gone beyond all worlds by consummation of transcendent spiritual powers, masters of transcendent concentration, with correct knowledge of all Buddha's skillfulness in respect to meanings, with knowledge of the means of skillful elucidation of truth, with extraordinary knowledge of expression, being clouds of teaching with inexhaustible power of eloquence, roaring the fearless, mighty lion's roar, enjoying the unequaled bliss of non-reliance, having unclouded eyes, seeing into all things, moons of knowledge of the state of intellect of all beings, beams of light, of designations of principles of all truths from the sphere of wisdom, mountains of virtue with diamonds of knowledge, beyond all comparison, sprouting the knowledge of all spiritual faculties, heroic conquerors of all demons, full of the energy of the sphere of endless knowledge, physically beyond all worldlings, with unhindered insight into all things, aware of the bounds of finiteness and infinity, standing on the limit of reality, tallying with the universal limit, having the eye of knowledge observing signlessness, skilled in the causes of accomplishment of all practices of enlightening beings, coursing in non-dualistic knowledge, observing all worldly trends, appearing in all Buddha lands without dwelling, free from obscurity in regard to all things, having reached the sphere of knowledge without darkness, engaged in the illumination of truth everywhere, excellent fields of blessings for all beings, moons of fulfillment of the wishes of all who see or hear them, mountains of virtue rising above all worlds, bravely subduing all challengers, making their voices heard in all Buddha lands, tirelessly watching all the Buddhas, able to control reflections of the bodies of all Buddhas, adopting appropriate forms to guide all beings, pervading all lands with one body, having purified their spheres of accomplishment, having the capacity for the vehicle of great knowledge unobstructed as space, reflecting the bodies of all things in their sphere of knowledge, sons of knowledge appearing in all worlds, having the power to adapt to all worlds at will, having specific knowledge of the various dispositions and faculties of all beings, having arrived at all truths with unobstructive perspective, apprised of the inherent nature of all things being birthlessness, mature in the knowledge of the mutual interpenetration of the subtle and gross, resolved on the goal of the profound state of Buddhahood, knowing the verbal designations of profound meaning, eloquently telling the meanings of endless words and expressions, expounding entry into the ocean of all scriptures by one word, supporting the vast body of knowledge of mystic formulae, having the power to hold them forever, knowing specifically their abodes over untold ages in a single moment of thought, having occult knowledge of all worlds, knowing past, present, and future in a single moment of thought, reflecting the infinite ocean of Buddha teachings in mystic formulae holding all principles, tirelessly turning the wheel of teaching, leading all beings to knowledge, illumined with the knowledge of the sphere of Buddhas, always in the concentration of good vision, having the super-knowledge that discerns the differences among all things while being ultimately unattached, master of knowledge of the sphere of liberation, the highest of all states.